Have we finally found Amelia? The disappearance of legendary pilot Amelia Earhart has always been shrouded in mystery, but a new study may have answers as to what really happened. Amelia Earhart vanished over the Pacific Ocean in 1937. 3 years later, skeletal remains suspected to be hers was recovered on Niku Maroto Island. A physician in Fiji examined the bones in 1940 and determined that the remains belonged to a European male. The bones have since been lost, but recent analysis of the skeletal measurements using modern techniques reveals the bones were in fact female. Measurements of the arm and leg bones were determined to be a match to Earhart's estimated size and build, making it likely that the remains were hers. The data shows the bones were more similar to the ill-fated pilot than 99% of individuals in a large sample, though without a way to examine the actual bones, it's difficult to determine an actual match with 100% certainty. Keep watching for more unsolved mysteries.
New DNA testing planned in JonBenet Ramsey case. New DNA testing is planned in the investigation of the unsolved murder of 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey, who was found dead in 1996. The investigation was reopened after an exclusive report revealed flaws in the interpretation of previous DNA testing. JonBenet's mother, Patsy Ramsey, said she realized her daughter was missing after finding a ransom letter on the kitchen staircase the morning after Christmas and quickly phoned the police. 2 officers who arrived shortly searched the home, but only sealed off JonBenet's bedroom. Newsweek reported that the search was not thorough enough as the police did not enter the room in the basement, where JonBenet's body was later found. JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, went into the basement room later that day and found his daughter's body there with her torso covered by a white blanket. JonBenet's mouth was duct-taped and her wrists were tied. A garrote was found around her neck and her skull was fractured. Investigators also found undigested pineapple in her stomach. JonBenet's family members were suspects in her murder. Officials also considered the possibility of an intruder having committed the crime. Then District Attorney Mary Lacey concluded the DNA found in JonBenet's underwear and the DNA found in her long johns pointed to an unknown male. Lacey's conclusion exonerated the Ramsey family from suspicion. However, new evidence has shown DNA samples from the long johns belong to at least 2 people, in addition to JonBenet. The DNA profile gathered from JonBenet's underwear could also be a composite, and not from just a single individual. The new discoveries make the link between the DNA found in the underwear and the long johns extremely weak, and may result in the DNA findings being considered worthless as evidence. The former district attorney did not respond to requests for comment after the report revealed the DNA findings failed to support her decision to exonerate the Ramsey family. On a cold and rainy night in the skies above America's Pacific Northwest, a hijacker clutching a $200,000 cash ransom jumps from a plane. More than 4 decades later, the crime has never been solved, and the infamous hijacker remains best known by the pseudonym D.B. Cooper. The legend of D.B. Cooper begins at the Northwest Orient Airlines flight counter at Portland International Airport on November 24, 1971. A man identifying himself as Dan Cooper pays cash for a one-way ticket on Flight 305 to Seattle, a mere 30-minute journey. Cooper takes seat 18C at the back of the plane, lights a cigarette, and orders a bourbon and soda. Approximately 1/3 full, the Boeing 727 takes off on schedule at 2:50 p.m. When Cooper hands Florence Schaffner a note, the 23-year-old flight attendant assumes that yet another lonely businessman is giving her his phone number. But Cooper insists that Schaffner read the note. The message says Cooper has a bomb, and the flight attendant should sit next to him. After opening his briefcase to give Schaffner a glimpse of the explosive device, Cooper lays out his demands. The skyjacker wants $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck on standby at the airport in Seattle. Schaffner goes to the cockpit to tell pilot William Scott that the plane is being hijacked. The pilot then informs the authorities on the ground and relays Cooper's demands. On her return, Schaffner finds Cooper wearing a pair of dark sunglasses. The plane circles in the air over Puget Sound near Seattle for around 2 hours, while the local police and FBI gather 10,000 $20 bills bundled in rubber bands and procure 4 parachutes from a local skydiving school. On board the plane, Cooper points out the city of Tacoma below, indicating he may be familiar with the local area. According to Schaffner, Cooper remains calm and polite, even telling her to keep the change when he orders another bourbon and soda. The well-mannered man in seat 18C bears no resemblance to the stereotypical crazed skyjacker of the time. often political dissidents trying to get to Cuba. Witnesses describe Cooper as a man aged in his mid-40s, around 6 feet tall and smartly dressed. He is wearing a clip-on tie and mother-of-pearl tie pin, from which many years later, the FBI will build a possible DNA profile of the hijacker. At 5:39 p.m., the plane lands at Seattle-Tacoma Airport and parks in an isolated spot on the runway. A bag filled with cash and parachutes is delivered to the aircraft. In return, Cooper releases all 36 passengers, along with Schaffner and another flight attendant. Cooper asks for the plane to take off with the air stairs at the back lowered, but doesn't argue when airline officials say it's unsafe to do so. Instead, Cooper says he will lower the air stairs himself when the plane is back in the sky. When the plane takes off again around 7:40 p.m., there are only 5 people aboard. Captain Scott, his co-pilot, and a flight engineer sit in the cockpit. In the cabin, Cooper is joined by flight attendant Tina Mucklow. On Cooper's instructions, the plane is scheduled to stop in Reno, Nevada to refuel. Its ultimate destination is Mexico City. Cooper demands that the plane fly no higher than 10,000 feet and no faster than 100 knots, or about 120 miles per hour. Cooper also insists that the landing gear must remain deployed, the wing flaps lowered 15 degrees, and the cabin remain unpressurized. Out of Cooper's sight, the plane is followed by 2 F-106 fighter jets, scrambled from a nearby Air Force base. A Lockheed T-33 trainer jet also follows, but runs out of fuel and has to turn back. None of the pilots sees anything or anyone exit the Boeing 727. The last person to see Cooper is flight attendant Tina Mucklow, when he tells her to join the rest of the crew in the cockpit. Mucklow will later tell investigators that she saw Cooper tying something around his waist. At 8:13 p.m., the crew notices a sudden upward tilt in the plane's tail section, which requires trimming to get the aircraft back to its flight level. Investigators believe this could be the moment D.B. Cooper made his exit by leaping into the freezing cold air, through the clouds, and to an unknown fate. Around 2 hours after Cooper's suspected jump, the plane lands in Reno, Nevada. Investigators search the plane, but the hijacker is nowhere to be found. A reporter erroneously identifies the suspect as D.B. Cooper, and the name sticks. On board, detectives find 66 unidentified fingerprints, 2 of the 4 parachutes, and Cooper's clip-on black tie and mother-of-pearl tie clip. The search for Cooper initially focuses on an area near the city of Ariel in southwest Washington state. But a huge manhunt turns up no trace of the hijacker or his equipment. According to FBI Special Agent Larry Carr, no experienced parachutist would have risked jumping in the treacherous conditions braved by Cooper. He says clouds blocked Cooper's visibility, and the jump was uncoordinated, meaning he didn't have an accomplice waiting for him to land. What's more, a reserve chute picked by Cooper was only for training and had been sewn shut, something a true skydiver would have checked. In all the years that have followed, only 2 pieces of hard evidence have ever been found. In 1978, a hunter finds the fragment of a placard for lowering the back stairs of a Boeing 727. The placard was found along the flight path of the plane. 2 years later, about 20 miles south of Ariel, a boy finds $5,800 in damaged cash from Cooper's haul. 8-year-old Brian Ingram recovers part of the ransom cash while vacationing with his family on the Columbia River. The discovery of the money leads some investigators to believe they were looking in the wrong place all along. The drainage area of the Washougal River becomes the focus of searches by private individuals and groups, but still turns up nothing. According to some investigators, the eruption of nearby Mount St. Helens in 1980 may have destroyed any remaining evidence. D.B. Cooper's daring raid led to a spate of copycat hijackings, including 15 alone in 1972. None of the hijackers succeeded. The case was also the kickstart for vast improvements in airline safety, including mandatory luggage searches at airports. The FBI has investigated more than 1,000 suspects in the case, but has never been able to identify D.B. Cooper. DNA samples taken from Cooper's tie have never matched any of the suspects. However, the FBI admits the material may not have come from Cooper. The Bureau officially ended active investigation of the case in July 2016, citing a lack of new information. More than $194,000, the equivalent of more than $1 million today, has never been recovered. The FBI suspects that D.B. Cooper didn't survive the jump, but their guess about what really happened is as good as yours or mine.
Math professor thinks he may have solved MH370 mystery. A new study by a team of researchers, led by Professor Gong Chen at Texas A&M University in Qatar, proposes an answer to the mysterious disappearance of Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. The study suggests that the plane may have entered the water at an angle of close to 90 degrees, with the large, heavy portions of the plane, notably the wings, breaking off on impact. This model suggests the plane sank belly up, with the fuselage intact, and minimal creation and spread of debris. The heavier portions of the plane sank directly to the bottom of the ocean. The team, led by Professor Gong Chen at Texas A&M University in Qatar, ran 5 different landing scenarios, including one replicating the Miracle on the Hudson landing in 2009. Chen considered the Hudson glide ditching approach an unlikely outcome given the higher rate of survivability and creation of larger debris fields on failure. The flat landing was ruled out as it would have caused the plane to bounce, breaking up the fuselage and creating a wide path of debris and oil. Chen's team also dismissed a less dramatic nose-first diving entry, as the stress placed on the plane by impact would also have ruptured large sections of the plane. However, the report stressed that no conclusion on MH370's fate could truly be reached until the plane's black box is located and decoded.
Massive Neolithic ritual site discovered near Stonehenge. Archaeologists have discovered a massive stone monument near Stonehenge that could be the largest Neolithic site ever discovered in Britain and even in Europe. The massive stone monument, comprised of a row of 90 megalithic stones, was found buried under a thick grassy bank beneath the prehistoric Superhenge of Durrington Walls, less than 2 miles from Stonehenge in Wiltshire. The line of 4,500-year-old megaliths, which are up to 15 feet tall and 5 feet wide and are believed to be sarsen stones, was found with the use of sophisticated ground-penetrating radar equipment. They were lying horizontally, 3 feet underground. It's conceivable that they originally stood vertically in the ground like other standing stones in Britain, and that the stone line marked a ritual procession route in a gigantic ceremonial complex. Archaeologists believe the megaliths were eventually pushed over deliberately, and a bank built on top. From a C-shaped monument facing the River Avon, the entire structure was later shaped into a roughly circular enclosure, now known as Durrington Walls. The site measures around 1,640 feet in diameter and is surrounded by a ditch up to 54 feet wide and a bank of more than 3 feet high. It is built on the same summer solstice alignment as Stonehenge. A nearby wooden structure called Woodhenge, which archaeologists are still not sure had or did not have a roof, was thought to represent the land of the living, while Stonehenge represented the realm of the dead. Research into this new discovery, which opens a whole new chapter in Stonehenge's story, will be presented at the British Science Festival in Bradford this week.